I think so much times in organizations, we gate information internally. Like marketers talk a lot about how we shouldn't gate information to our audience. We should make it available for consumption, make it easier to buy. We should make it easier for people internally to understand what's happening in the business, what other people are doing, what they're working towards.
Welcome to Rep Matters, a podcast for sales professionals who are eager to build their business acumen and become top performers. In each episode, your hosts, Zoya Zagelbacher and Caroline Jones, explore the real-life experiences, obstacles, and triumphs of salespeople. With an emphasis on authenticity and storytelling, listeners gain valuable insights into the strategies, mindsets, and skills that drive success in sales. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rep Matters. I'm Zoya.
And I'm Caroline.
And this episode is brought to you by Marketers in Demand. Marketers in Demand has in-depth videos, podcasts, and articles from some of B2B's most in-demand marketers. Today, we have Karina Owens joining us. Karina is an award-winning account-based and growth marketer, driving revenue for high-growth B2B SaaS organizations with integrated and multi-channel marketing strategies. In other words, she's the GDM People's Champion.
Yes.
She's Chief Evangelist Officer at Purple Cork, providing virtual experiences that drive revenue and delight customers. She also serves as GDM advisor for several tech companies and consultancies, including AppTVO, GDM Partners, and Postal.io, to name a few. Karina also is a co-host and co-creator of Direct, the podcast for go-to-market professionals who want to see how work really gets done when people roll up their sleeves and they make campaigns happen. And Karina and I also happened to work together at Gong in the upmarket segment. So, Karina, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Zoya. I'm so sorry for that mouthful of an introduction, but thank you so much. You did it such justice. I appreciate you.
You're no need to apologize. You're extremely accomplished. So I love to do it. I love to see it.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners maybe will already recognize your voice from your Reveal days. So a
Yeah.
sweet little treat today on Reveal with a well-known and well-loved voice, I think.
Aw, thanks, Caroline.
So, Karina, let's start with your background. Can you tell us a little about how you originally got into tech?
Yeah, sure. Really long-winded story, but kind of didn't really have any business being in tech. But I think you'll find that most marketers don't really typically have that background. I was actually an education professional, but when I graduated college, there was a recession, and I kind of always knew that I had more of an entrepreneurial mindset. So I got into private equity and was doing a lot of investor relations and communications, and quickly realized that I just had a knack for like creativity, but also with a blend of like customer service, sales, and I found that marketing was kind of my sweet spot. So from there, I worked with a couple of global brands before coming across some series startups that were in the B2B SaaS space. And I found that that was really my sweet spot where I could really thrive and really try a lot of new things. I learned a ton of new disciplines where I started to specialize more in like demand generation and then account-based marketing. So yeah, that's my long-winded way of how I ended up in tech.
Can you tell us a little more about the education chapter? We have had a few former educators on the show.
Yeah, I love that it's this trend that we're seeing. So many former educators are becoming sales professionals, and it just makes sense to me. I mean, what we do is multi-thread all day, day in and day out. We're multi-threading with parents, we're multi-threading with children, we're multi-threading with other teachers and faculty and administration and the board. So it just makes sense. We have that kind of skill set that's embedded into us. But it was a passion of mine. My mom was an educator, and I'm really early into my high school year, I started to volunteer at daycares, and she just kind of pushed me, as mothers do, in that direction. I wanted to be a film director, but she told me to be realistic and I should go be a teacher. So I ended up doing that, and I still kind of deploy that skills in other facets of my life. I do mentorships from time to time. Actually was part of the mentorship program at Gong, which I loved. Met some incredible women that way. And then I also teach aerial silks in my spare time. So I'm constantly finding ways to keep the education practice under my belt.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I can't believe like all our time at Gong, I was at one point very into acro yoga. So there's like
No
overlap between the
way.
areas. So it's,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, no, we should have bonded on that totally. If we're ever together in person, which I don't think we ever have been, then I would love
No,
to teach
we
you.
haven't to date.
I would love
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So from education, you make your way into PE, private equity. You start working with some global brands. Was it like right off the bat, those global brands were SaaS companies or were they a mix of all kinds of companies?
It was a mix. So the first big one where I really cemented that marketing was going to be the discipline that I moved forward with in my career was actually a B2C consumer product that was global. And so what was great about that is they mainly distributed through some like big box chains like Home Depot. So I got to experience a lot of that B2B aspect of marketing and kind of realized that I enjoyed that aspect and then was kind of recruited to lean more down that B2B SaaS space throughout that process. But really good experience to have both sides of the house. And it was a really great company to understand what do I need to do to market to the consumer, so B2C, and then what do I need to do to market to B2B. It was a really great learning year for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel like the ABM space is fascinating and it's not just important for like enterprise sellers to understand anymore. Like mid-market sales are not going down without a multifaceted approach. How have you seen the ABM marketing world evolve over your past years of experience?
It's still evolving. I was just on a call with one of the consultancy that I work with, and they're starting to actually change the terminology in the industry. So you're going to start to see that's going to become another type of terminology that they're going to slowly phase out, I think, what account-based marketing is and come up with a new term, which is what marketers do. We're just constantly rebranding all these disciplines, demand generation from demand capture. So this trend has just been evolving. I think that it's a very straightforward concept, account based marketing. It's a strategy, how to align your go to market teams internally to then best get out your message to your best fit customers or your best fit potential customers. But because tech vendors, a multifaceted of them, claim to do account based marketing, it gets really muddied. And I've spent a lot of my years just trying to educate other marketers who get tasked with building account-based marketing programs, what it actually means to do account-based marketing, because it just gets so muddied and confused in the market with so many different tech vendors rebranding and claiming and yada, yada, yada. But at the core of it, it's a very basic strategy that we've kind of been doing really as sales professionals too for, decades.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, Caroline and I were talking about this. We were saying, I think it's changing, but a lot of times people think about like marketing in its own silo and sales in another silo. And I know you're really big on like no silos, like it's all, you know, one. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy on that? And then also, I'd be curious to hear stories about pushback or conversations you've had to navigate to get people to really wrap their minds around that.
Yeah, I think that for me, I've often come into an organization as a solo marketer. So somebody coming up to head up marketing and create the strategy, the disciplines, the different team members, structuring the different departments. And so with that comes the understanding that you have to really align with other department heads and get them to understand not just from a marketer's lens what you're trying to get across, but from multiple perspectives, what you're trying to achieve and really bringing it back to a business objective, removing the fluff, removing the jargon. So I think my experience just being that solo marketer and first kind of like marketing hire at different SaaS organizations has helped me understand how to communicate difficult concepts. I think to answer the second part of your question, the most challenging thing coming in, especially doing account-based marketing, even at larger organizations, is kind of what we were talking about earlier. People often pigeonhole account-based marketing as like a tactic. So like take direct mail. People will think, oh, account-based marketing, I equate that to direct mail. And it's like, no, no, no. There's much more to this. We need, there's strategy, there's concepts, there's data we need to work through, there's partnerships here. So that's been the biggest challenge, is just coming into an organization where maybe a couple of reps or department heads have just seen account-based marketing as a play or a tactic And that automatically gets you to be at a specific, proverbial seat at the table. And it doesn't allow for effective change. So I've had to always kind of like build my own pilot group of core users who would be my champions. So in RevOps and sales and, BDR, SER teams, customer success, I've had champions across each of those when I come into an organization where they'll come along with me and, I'll be very white glove, hands on with them to help them understand like what I'm trying to achieve and how it's going to fit in with their objectives and make them shine. And then once they see that, they then become my amplifiers across that team to really help them convey that message. And then I find that more and more people will come like to an ABM office hours that I host to see like, oh, I heard so and so over here, like they did something really successful with Karina. I want to do that too. I want to replicate that. I'm going to now listen. I'm going to now read that newsletter. I'm now going to read that Slack message. So it's a lot of hand holding and being willing to doing a lot of the grunt work yourself, no matter, what your title is, to show and tell the results so that you can get others to buy in.
Yeah.
So it's
I
really
was thinking of that immediately because I'm definitely the salesperson who thought of ABM as a strategy, a tool in the toolbox, but it's so much more than that. I've also been guilty of not always having the best mindset towards marketing and feeling like we're separate in that way. But what
Mhm.
you're describing is a sale. You're
Totally.
running an internal sale. How, taking it one step further, how would you describe the ideal relationship between sales and marketing within the go-to-market department?
Yeah, I mean, I've often said that it should be, Zoya, as you were saying earlier, it should be one team, one voice. We should all be speaking the same vernacular. We should all be working towards one singular goal. Maybe we have different ownerships over a specific type of goal, but we should all be rolling up into one singular goal. And every organization I've ever entered, they don't have that, right? They're different teams. They don't understand each other's objectives, what they're measured on, what are their KPIs, how are they performing. And because of that, there's just this automatic silo that's going to happen where people just work to preserve their status and their role at the company. And so, what I would recommend is really treating it like one function. There are different disciplines in the function, but we should all be working towards the same outcome, the same business outcome. And I think that that would enable much more of a partnership versus a marketing's coming over here demanding this. Sales has this other ask from, their team. They don't have time for that. It becomes noise and distraction. So it's such a convoluted subject, and it's such a shame that it's still such a topic that we still have all these
Yeah.
conferences and keynotes that are still talking about silos because it's so clear to me, and I'm sure to you both, how you can start to break that down, but actually putting it into action just is so challenging.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes from leadership too. Like the way you're describing it, it's like strategy rolled out at the top, leadership endorsement at the top, structuring. For sellers, like let's say it's a seller who's not in that kind of environment, that hasn't been the case, but they see value in partnering with their marketing team or they see value in ABM strategy. What advice do you have for those sales professionals where it's not at the top, but they want to make it happen with their marketer?
I think so much times in organizations, we gate information internally. Like marketers talk a lot about how we shouldn't gate information to our audience. We should make it available for consumption, make it easier to buy. We should make it easier for people internally to understand what's happening in the business, what other people are doing, what they're working towards. So I would say that a salesperson that does believe in marketing and maybe has had a great experience with the marketing sales partnership at another organization, coming to a marketer and asking just for time, one on one, to connect and say, hey, here's what I'm working on. Here's this new pitch that we're rolling out. Here's this new framework, ideology, how we're attracting prospects. What are your thoughts? What's going on in your world? And I think just by opening up that dialogue, like marketers would, that's their dream, right? Is to have somebody in sales want to talk to them, want to listen to them, want to get their feedback. So that would be my advice is no matter your role, if you believe in the value of marketing, whether or not your leadership does or not, you can still make an impact. And I think that just starts by starting a dialogue and conversation, even if it's not a directive from the top.
Yeah. That really
Proactive.
challenges. Oh, big time. Like, and especially if someone comes in, if you're a salesperson now, you just joined an organization for the first time, build those relationships first. Or if someone new has just joined from marketing, send them a couple Gong recordings, like proactively reach out to them. It challenges a thought that I had. I wonder if either of you have felt this way in the past. Like individual contributor roles in sales, you just put your blinders on, you do your job, you come in. I had a sales manager a couple years ago who described the difference between like that type of salesperson and an entrepreneurial salesperson. And the entrepreneurial salesperson realizes that to get their job done, they have to build those relationships internally. Whether you're, again, enterprise sales or not, I think enterprise tends to do this right away. But the kind of sales leader of the future, I think, regardless of your level, works hard to build those relationships across the organization instead of just putting their blinders on and thinking they can get the job done alone, because nobody gets a deal done by themselves anymore.
No, 100%. I mean, and I think that there's maybe in fear of rejection or fear of coming off a certain way if you're putting yourself out there and being vulnerable to make that relationship, especially if it's not common at an organization to have those cross-functional dynamics. But I do think that it's the only way I've ever learned. I mean, I've always tried to find in any new role that I've entered in, whether that be more of a marketing role or whether that be more of a sales role, I've always made it a purpose to connect with each people in different departments. So finance, HR, administration, support, because it just helps you understand the aspects of the business, what everybody's working on. And I mean, it makes me feel more purposeful in my work too. When I know that I know what other people are working on, how I can contribute and fit into that picture, how I can help them. It just feels more purposeful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I found myself even like being more conscious about that at a certain point in my career, maybe like even like one role ago. We had a guest on who said something about getting off the island. I had the same boss as him at one point. So that was also echoing in my mind. And yeah, just like scheduling time with people who maybe you don't think is necessarily going to make an impact for this specific deal or like this specific initiative that you're like heads down focused on. I remember doing that at the time I was managing a team and I started to encourage my team to do that. And some of the top performers were the ones who were working with partnerships or working with marketing. And it was like, when someone does well, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what's your
Mhm.
secret? And then it's like, those are usually the people who, when they can't really explain it as well, they're like, well, like it's usually I'm co-selling or I'm going after the lowest hanging fruit, but I'm identifying it outside of reporting, right? Like I'm identifying it because I sat down and did like a mapping session with someone. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's like a huge takeaway. And it's one that's starting to become a trend as we talk to more people about getting off the island.
I love that. I wonder too, like, what are the questions that managers could ask their direct reports to get them to think like that, to where they start to come up with those ideas themselves. I think that how we structure our one-on-ones as people leaders is so important about helping them think creatively too. And I think that there's a lot of open-ended questions that we could be asking that encourages that kind of more free thought and outside the box thinking.
Absolutely. That actually, I think just from our time working together, Karina, you have many strong suits, but your creativity is definitely one of them that stands out to me. Yeah, I would love to hear either a recent or a favorite creative campaign that you've had success with.
Hmm. This one's always so hard for me. I get asked this all the time. And I don't know why I don't have more of a Rolodex in my brain. I don't think I sit and reflect upon the wins enough. But thinking back at Gong in particular too, there was so much around community that I was getting involved with, where there were so many micro wins that had kind of a ripple effect in the organization. I think one of them was this concept of, Gong, when I came in, they had a really great community already built out. And for late stage deals in enterprise, I wanted a way for our prospects to connect with the raving fan community that was inside of the community that we had built. And so I worked with a vendor of ours, Comsor, on a custom matching program to actually match raving fans of a particular title, seniority, etc., that I worked with, that they agreed to be part of this program, to these other prospects, and they would meet, and it would remove that barrier where sales would say, here's this reference, go talk to this person. It kind of removed that, what we all know to be kind of like hand-picked anyways, and hand-delivered and spoon-fed words of testimonials, etc. It kind of removed that, and they would have these conversations, and it to me was this great show and tell aspect of like, hey, let's highlight our raving fans and give them an opportunity to show how awesome they are at using our product. Let's spotlight them as leaders, because it's something as simple as that with customers. Just, you can never do enough of that, in my opinion. And then having the prospects have that, like, oh, Gong doesn't care about who I talk to. I can join this community and they're not going to know about it. Okay. I thought that said a lot about our brand. So I don't know how creative that is, but it still rings true to me as like being something really cool that I came in and I just saw as an opportunity. It was great to be able to just get it off the ground so quickly.
Yeah. I think that's extremely creative. I think it wasn't until recently, and people are still like lagging, where people are thinking about the network, right? Like selling to your network or creating a community around your product versus, just having this product and then having buyers. Like, it's becoming a more, I also really like Comsor, the company. I think it's very smart what they're doing.
Agreed. Yeah.
So no, I think that's extremely creative, like, for sure.
Thank you.
I can't think of anything more honest for potential customers. There is a little bit of, here's the client I've handpicked for a reason. Of course, I'm not going to be on the call. Of course, I turned off my Gong recording so that you can have the referral call without me listening in. But how brave, right, of a brand to be like, connection, I hope it goes well. But that does show trust in your brand and the value that Gong delivers to customers. This is just a big ad for Gong.
I know, right?
And Comsor.
Not sponsored.
When it does go well, though, like, what credibility too, like, talk about the ultimate social proof.
Right.
So
exactly.
transparent. Karina, you're involved with a lot of advising these days. I'm not really sure how you have the time for it, but working with Postal, Terminus, a former client of mine and a prospect in that order. I did not successfully sell to Terminus, and I think I need to talk to Taylor about that at some point. But if I had the relationships and multi-threaded better, maybe I could have gotten a deal. You're involved with a number of really impressive brands as an advisor. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of becoming an advisor and how you think about the companies that you choose to work with in this capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled to have these conversations because I have a lot of one-on-ones with my peers in my network wanting to do the same thing. So I'm happy to have more of a platform to talk about this. I don't think we talk about it enough. It started really as just being a really inquisitive customer of some of these brands. So making sure that I raised my hand about wanting to be involved in things like a product advisory board, and then building those relationships from there. Having built a product advisory board myself at a former company, what feels like many lifetimes ago, I understood the value that I could bring and how I could even coach these brands on how they should be thinking about building a customer advisory board or something like advisory program in general. So it really was a matter of me just raising my hand, believing in myself, knowing that I had value to add, and asking to be a part of it. And to this date, whenever I've raised my hand, I haven't been rejected. Whenever people come to me, I'm sorry. I know. Sorry, I didn't mean that.
No,
I love
egotistical.
I got 100% close rate.
Yeah.
Sorry, I saw Zoe's face. I was like, "Oh God, check yourself."
No, that was a good
Not at
phase.
all.
I was enjoying that.
I mean that to say. I mean that to say. I want to encourage people to not be afraid. That not a
Yeah.
tap on my back, but just to more so be like, just putting yourself out there.
What's the worst?
Exactly. What's the worst that could happen? They say no, fine, move on. It wasn't going to be a good fit anyways. But I think if you know that there's synergy, and believe what you bring to the table, just asking is a lot of how you can get through the door. And how I evaluate it when I'm asked these days is I do have to look at my time. I have to think about what is the expectation expected of me? What am I getting out of this? And how valuable is it for me? And I I essentially pick the different ones I work with because I do believe in their mission, and I do, me choosing that affects my credibility in the market, right? So I have to fully believe in their mission, their capabilities, and how seriously they treat my impact and my involvement. If it's just to kind of have my name on something, I don't find that as valuable. But if I can be strategically involved in helping shape the vision and trajectory of a company, that's much more meaningful to me. So long-winded way, and sorry to interrupt, but yeah, not as egotistical as I sound, more so just trying to encourage others to raise their hand too.
I love that. Like, if you saw my face, if I smiled or something, no, that was me like lighting up. Like, I think it's really
Oh,
important for us to talk about like believing in yourself and
yeah.
putting your hand up. Like, so many people, it's funny because I see a lot of really strong sellers also in this moment, right? We're all women in this conversation. I see so many strong people. I will say I see a lot of women. I'll speak for myself, right, as a woman. I will go so hard for other people's products, right? Like if somebody hires me and they believe in me to sell their product and I believe in their product, like I am so confident, like elevator pitches, right? Doctors' offices, people ask what you do, right? And then you start to like I'm working on some of my own creative projects and some of my own things and like it took me a while to like talk about it and tell people about it and almost think like who am I to XYZ. So no, I love that point. Like when you said I believe you started the statement by saying I believed in myself and then I did it. So you had me at that. And then you said 100% close rate. And I was like, okay. Because you never know, right? And if you don't have 100% close rate, who cares, right? Like that's part of the journey too. But no, I'm so glad that you bring that point up because I think sometimes we forget that. We think if someone isn't endorsing us, then
Mm,
how are we going to do it, without that endorsement? We look for someone to validate, basically. So I love this
yeah,
point.
100%. I mean, and it's so funny what you said too, I'm exactly the same way. I go so hard for any brand that I'm representing and marketing for and selling for, but I flip it to me. And there is that confidence, and it takes time that I've had to build it slowly over time. But even as you just saw me do, I didn't want to like throw it out there that I'm so, I believe so much in myself. And I don't know, we just have to keep breaking that down, I think. But yeah, I definitely relate to that. It's something I'm still working on overcoming is how do I continue to champion myself without needing somebody else's validation?
This feels
Yeah.
like an inception moment from the direct episode when you talk to Hannah Jacover.
Mm. Oh,
And
wow, you listened to that.
yeah, well, Taylor was like kind of you did a debrief at the beginning of the episode. Everyone should go listen to it. And Taylor had said, like, I have strong self-confidence, and then felt a little shaky about having said it the way she did.
Yeah.
We're not having that here. No
Yeah.
apologies needed. I'm so energized. That's why we had the show. I'm so energized by hearing people talk about their accomplishments. We don't need to wait for someone else to hype us up. So sorry to drag this one out on you, Karina, but thank you for communicating that the way that you did.
Thank you for calling that out, especially for Taylor. Obviously, she's somebody I care about deeply and have been advocating for, and she does the same for me, which I appreciate so much. We had a talk about it after the recording happened, and she wanted to edit it out just for the fear of the public reaction to that sentiment, seeing a woman being really confident and coming across as egotistical and arrogant versus just being confident and sure of herself. And I said, I think, it's up to you, of course. But I said, I think us having this conversation that we're having right now, we're talking always about being direct and calling things out as they are. We can have that at the show if you want as like a precursor to let them know that that was the thought track, but we're going to put it out there anyways, even though that, did happen. So, so proud of her for being so vulnerable to do that. And just love that you listened to that episode and kind of connected that here. Thank you.
It's a good one. Oh, they're all good,
Thanks.
though. Lord, could we talk to you all day? I have one more question before we get to our final questions. We haven't even talked about Pebble Cork yet, but I do want to stay on the advisory chat for a moment because I think you have a really interesting ear to the ground in the function that you're in. You're in the room with executives and with revenue leaders across the tech industry. So, do you have any advice for job seekers in sales and or sellers selling to revenue leaders based on what you know to be top of mind in tech leadership right now?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of change happening as there always is, but as far as, how we're thinking about how particular problems and solutions are being positioned with industry partners, thought leaders, and some big brands, there's going to be a lot of terminology changes. There's going to be a lot of pivots. I think even to just the nature of how we go to market being more sales led. I think that that's going to transition too. I think it's going to look a lot different with a lot of the AI advancements that are out there. And something that Zoya, you talked about at the top, just with being super mindful about networking and how you're using that in your prospecting and your sales efforts, nurturing your network is going to be a big change and difference and something that's going to become table stakes, not a nice to have, just because of the pure trend we're seeing with how technology is going to help automate and potentially displace a lot of things. And just given the economy and the way, unfortunately, what we're seeing just in the industry with layoffs, et cetera, there's never a time like yesterday is the day to start making connections and building and forging a strong network and even your own point of view. I think too, if you're not actively practicing writing, whatever that is, it doesn't have to be about what you're selling or the business that you're in or your 9 to 5. But if you're not actively practicing writing and getting feedback on that writing, I think that that's going to be a disadvantage in the future too, just because what's going to stand out is going to be people that are comfortable with communicating, people that are comfortable with having a point of view. People already are sniffing out what is AI written versus what is somebody that has clear expertise and a clear point of view. So not to sound like doom and gloom, more to just to urge people to, like, if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to put yourself out there, build a network, build your, brand, as they say, practice and hone in on writing, like now is the time to do it because there's just so much advancement. And yes, those leaders are talking about what are these tech tools going to be positioned as, but also like, what does this mean for all of us and how we're structuring our teams and businesses?
Yeah.
Reactions?
I have so much to say on this. So Sam McKenna posted like a couple months ago. Sorry, I messed up my hair. I'm so excited to talk about this. She posted, oh, Sam Sales is hiring their first account executive. And one of the most important skills was writing. And my immediate
Mhm.
reaction was, we could ChatGPT, Sam, like in my head.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's not the case, but I love that you said that because that's not the first thing I think we think about when we think about strong salespeople.
Yeah.
With people who can be concise in their written communication and have a point of view and not be afraid to put it out in public forums, what an underrated skill. And I think your point, Karina, is especially because we have all of the potential with AI as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's so funny too is I don't think many people know or realize how much of an executive's voice is actually written by some marketer, some just individual contributor marketer. Like that's the person writing the executive's point of view, LinkedIn posts, emails. I've written all our head of sales copy. I've written every sales rep's like email that goes out. Like that's a skill set. And I can see that I have to do a ton of editing with like whatever first draft I get back. So it's definitely not something that you can just pick up and win at overnight. It's something that I still don't feel like I'm amazing at it. I don't. Like I'm always feeling like quite honestly, sometimes I feel like I suck at it. I have clear evidence that I don't, but I feel like that. So it's just goes to show that you have to have this like muscle and you have to sound different. You have to be appealing. And AI is not there yet with creative writing. It's not persuasive enough. It's not detailed enough. It's not even informed enough. Like, so there's just, even though we have things that can like AI can maybe write your first draft, it's certainly not going to be what helps you stand out from the noise. It's certainly not going to be what is a unique point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. I was quiet because I hadn't thought about that. If anything, I've had conversations with people where we're like, oh no, like we used to see ourselves as good writers. Like, what's going to happen? But that is a really great point that I honestly hadn't considered. Like, I've only heard kind of like the doom and doom, the doom and doom, yeah,
Yeah.
perspective, which is, well, if you hung your hat on being a wordsmith, good luck. But you're right, because it's hard to have the emotion. It's hard to have especially like if you are putting it on like LinkedIn, but actually that's not even true. You could be messaging the same prospect even. And if you don't have the same continuous voice, that's weird, right? That's jarring for a prospect.
Totally. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
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 We're coming up on time, so we'll have to have you on again because I feel like there's even more that I would love to hear about from you. But we have 2 questions that we love to ask everyone.
Okay.
The first question is, what was your first large commission check purchase? What did you splurge on?
Oh, man. I'm pretty sure it had something to do with it's so boring. It had something to do with like a house repair or something. But my first commission check was quite hefty. And not everybody knows this, but at a point in time, I did have my own book of business and I did have a quota and I had just an incredible first sale that was very intimidating, but very coming to find out a very easy sale that I had to make. And I realized so much about sales, which I think makes me an even better partner to sales. Just how much everybody has to do, all the work, all the piecing together, all the mundane stuff that nobody cares to do, all the reminders, repeating yourself to death. But not a fun purchase, but it was so fun to just have one fat check come in. Yeah.
Yes.
Great one. House
Yeah.
repairs, very important
Right.
to protect
And
the other.
expensive.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
This is our chance, I guess, to give you a chance to talk a little bit about Purple Cork or whatever you'd like. What are you currently selling internally or promoting that we should know about?
We have some really cool celebrity football experiences that we are packaging up for our clients right around Super Bowl that have been just so fun to work on. If you guys know who Drew Bledsoe is, it's okay. I didn't. I'm not huge into football.
I don't, but
yeah, that's fine. He's
sounds
really
important.
he's really cool in the football world. He went to the Super Bowl. He was like the guy before. Who's the really famous Patriots guy? He would hate that I'm saying this.
Brady?
Yeah, he was the guy before Brady.
Nailed
He would
it.
hate that I said that.
Sports ball.
Right, sports ball. Yeah, no, but that's been really cool to connect and bring like some really unique experiences for our prospects like that. So we're constantly just trying to reinvent the wheel and make virtual offerings really stand out and still feel really exclusive.
Tell us where we can find you. I'm sure everyone's going to want to keep in touch. Where
Yeah.
can we stay in touch and see what you're up to? What am I saying?
Yeah.
All right.
Do we just do it? We'll just like redo it.
Yeah, totally fine. By the way, me and Taylor do this all the time. This is totally normal.
Oh, good.
We're still getting our footing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always, especially if you stop after a while, it's so hard to get back in. Okay, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. Karina, to wrap us up, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes. So I live and breathe on LinkedIn. It's the main social platform that I'm dedicating myself to at this time. You can find me, Corrina, Corrina. Always happy to connect, always happy to go back and forth and strategize and ideas. And as you guys so kindly have mentioned, I also do a podcast with my co-host, Taylor Young. Direct. We release episodes bi-weekly. And if you ever want to be featured on it, we would love to feature you and highlight you and your go-to-market story.
Amazing. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you. So great to see you again, Zoya, and so great to meet you, Caroline. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Thank
Thanks
you
for
so much,
joining.
Karina.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Rep Matters, the podcast for sales professionals who become top performers. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Rep Matters wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or access all episodes at marketersindemand.com/repmatters. See you next time.